And Nigeria witnessed more cases of violations against the 2022 Electoral Act during the governorship elections than was recorded during the presidential election. A new report captured by the Nigeria police shows a 62% rise in electoral violations during the governorship polls on the 18th of March, compared to figures recorded in February. The report was presented at a meeting of police commanders to appraise the general election security management. And Arise Defense and Security correspondent Ferdinand Duora reports.
Incidents like snatching of ballot boxes, vote buying, intimidation of voters and INEC ad hoc staff, and destruction of election materials are some of the violations against the 2022 Electoral Act responded to by the Nigeria police during the general elections. A breakdown of the statistics show a rise of over 49% in the number of major incidents responded to by the security agencies during the governorship polls compared to the presidential elections. The report also shows a 128% increase in the number of arrests made for electoral offences and a 90% increase in the number of firearms recovered within the period.
While not less than 66 firearms of various descriptions were recovered from electoral adversaries. A summary indicates that a total of 185 major electoral offenses were reported during the presidential and national assembly elections, with 203 arrests made and 18 firearms recovered. Similarly, a total of 304 electoral offenders were recorded or was recorded during the gubernatorial and state house of assembly polls, with a total number of 578 arrests and the recovery of 48 firearms.
Reacting to the development, Nigerians are attributing the increase in violence to delay in prosecution, desperation of political actors, and compromise by security operatives.
Unfortunately, I think the police were taken by surprise. They were not completely ready for the push. And I say that because all the symptoms and signals and warning signs of violence were there from the certain period of the presidential election to the governorship election. And most of those people who threatened voters and violence were not brought to book, even for questioning. So in the governorship election, it was now like, we have seen what beavers can do. It can take us out of the system. It empowers the people. It makes the process more credible. And therefore, we have to use other forms to achieve electoral victory.
You know, during the first election, the incumbents, both state governors and most of the operators believed that the system would be free and fair, and that the security forces, everybody will work well. But after what happened during the first election, and they saw that some of their colleagues who decided to go on their path seem to be succeeding. Because in Nigeria, they say, oh, what's important is for you to get the result declared in your favor. Let others go to court. When they saw that kind of attitude, go to court, go and do anything, go to court, all the governors decided to take the bull by the horn.
The process and outcome of the general elections have been trailed by mixed reactions, with some observers saying they lacked transparency and marred by violence. Meanwhile, at the resumption of plenary, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, gave the assurance that the 9th National Assembly will pass the Electoral Offences Bill before it winds down in June. Gbajabiamila says the bill has the potential to create a system of vigorous prosecution and punishment of electoral offenders, which will inspire confidence in the elections. Ferdinand Duroha, Arise News.
All right, Arise analyst Dr. Sam Amadi joins us now for more on INEC's new date. Dr. Sam Amadi, good to see you on Newsnight tonight. Well, INEC has set April 15 for the rerun elections in Kebbi and Adamawa State. Let's take Adamawa, for example. Fintiri, the governor, is saying, look, the resident electoral officer needs to be relieved of his duty, while Binani the other contender of the APC, is actually applauding INEC. What do you make of all of this? Let's have your take.
So,
and then, of course, that point that was made by respondents there, that the police, the security were not prepared.
Well, first, I think that INEC should routinely remove recs in areas that are contentious. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's found guilty. So if you have an election where the PDP, the party in government, is accusing the rec, it could mean that maybe the rec didn't work with them or the rec worked for the opposition. So however, one of the things that INEC didn't do well is responding to areas where there are significant allegations of bias. So for example, build up to the election in Lagos State, Amadi, the rec, had severe issues about when he spoke about migrants and all that, whether I spoke out of context, but the general perception was that the people felt he was biased. So you could, in the last election, Jega did that a lot in 2015. So last minute they can change or send special rec to go and conduct elections where there are a history of dispute, maybe relationship with governors. Take for Imo State, for example, where the rec, that opposition party has been alleging relationship with the governor who nominated her. There's no point why you should allow the person to continue. So I think that irrespective of whether the rec actually did anything wrong or right, in this runoff, it's small matter. I mean, INEC is now, recs are almost redundant now.
Yeah.
There are no elections going on. So change that rec and bring a new rec to run the election, because this is also about confidence. It's about trust. It's not, doesn't necessarily, this is not conviction. Nobody says you should go to court, go to jail. But why not inspire confidence by bringing a fresh person who does this small
How
election?
do you inspire confidence when since 2015 upwards or 19, since this Mahmoud Yakubu-led INEC came onto power, it's been one inconclusive elections
Or the other. I mean, that's the point. If you look at the Afrobarometer measure, the trust in INEC is about 13%, 15% before this election. It's going to be worse. Mahmoud has a terrible record of inspiring confidence. Some places that shouldn't be known, for example, Kaduna State, okay, which is not inconclusive. You have the number of votes supposedly cancelled is more than the number of the lead between.
Yes.
They look at a place where there should be no inconclusiveness, you make it inconclusive. So really, there's a sense in which nobody has confidence in INEC to be impartial and fair, because the rules are not standardized. You say beavers has to be election where there's no beavers should be cancelled. You probably will not cancel all. So if you look at those runoff on Senate, House of Reps, they are disputable. There are places that maybe people claim they won fairly, and other places where people are declared winners. The allegations that the elections didn't hold insignificant constituencies or areas where the results, the collective possible results, if everybody votes, far more outweigh the lead that the person has. So it's difficult to have confidence in this INEC.
Well, the question then would be, let's look at security issue, where the police in its report has said that there's been 62% rise from between February and March 18th, in electoral violence and rest. Can we say the police were not prepared for the elections?
According
all
to
security, all security stakeholders said they were prepared.
Ready.
The NSA, the chief of defense, said, "We will bloody you." That was some of the
mistake that people make when they look at preparation. It's not about technical. It's more about institutional integrity. If you look at reports about violations, they were massively aided and abetted by police. For example, in many places here about governors or politicians going to scatter ballot boxes, going to take collection officers to a different place, to detention in different places, kidnapping, and these are violence that need to, because first, all the voters come unarmed. The real police officers on duty are unarmed. So the people who terrorize, enable this violence are people who are armed. So either armed thugs and armed service persons who work with political authorities. In fact, if you listen to the police officers themselves, the problem of police in Nigeria is state capture. Is that the police is not professionalized, not in terms of skills and shooting skills, in terms of being depoliticized, not in the control of state authorities. If you go to every state, most of the states now, the governor can easily remand his political opponents in detention. So the point about police being prepared is just a story. They're always prepared. This is not a nuclear war. This is not going to Ukraine. This is about elections where voters are disarmed, where the only people who are armed are the security officers and criminals, unarmed.
Yes,
so thank you. So the point I'm making is prepared. Are they going to combat? They are prepared.
It's not war, after
they
all.
themselves said, we are prepared. They deployed thousands of soldiers. But the problem, and this is what we should counterfactual, less police might actually mean a fairer poll. Because at the end of the day, the stories you hear from people who witness these electoral crimes is that security people swoop on them and scattered the ballot box, took it away, hijacked everything.
So where will salvation come from when INEC officials are said to be complicit? Police also.
Absolutely.
The politicians themselves.
That's why.
Where exactly will salvation
good
come from?
In our Abuja school report we did on Sunday, the point we made was, look, first fix institutions before you talk about free and fair election. Because the mistake that people put the cat
Before the horse.
The real thing that creates fair pools, neutral pools, credible pools, is that institutions that run those shows, namely INEC, the police, are free and fair themselves. So if they are already captured, if they are not professionalized, for example, the police need to be free from the control of the politicians. You disarm other people who have police officers, don't come to the arm. Citizens come unarmed. So the level of brigade, the level of banditry. Look at, for example, Lagos, for example, where people were almost defranchised. If INEC was active, INEC would run Lagos completely, because, I mean, you can't have...
I'm surprised you say people were almost disenfranchised.
I mean, as a
so
class,
many people actually...
Exactly. Why do you have to uphold an election where people were structurally disenfranchised from voting? So if INEC was actually an active, efficient regulator, it's a rerun completely. Because, see, look at it this way. Apart from the fact that it's a constitutional right of people to vote, you can't say people are saying, oh, how did Desmond Elliott win his election?
In spite of
all the... But they forget that he won because the typical voter who would have voted against him was excluded from voting. So the INEC itself has no standardized process for deciding what should be run. So if INEC was alive to its duty, it would have rerun Lagos.
Okay.
Because essentially it was not a pool at all.
But what are we really learning from all of these inadequacies, from INEC not, having that frame of mind, you understand, to really institutionalize fairness
in electoral. So if you ask me three things: one, don't invest too much on building INEC infrastructure-wise technology. We spent 3.5 billion, they said. Don't invest too much on technology. Technology is very good. Look at Beavers. Look at the IRF. We never used it. Today, in the tribunal, it's been interesting to see how the three parties prove their case. Creating results from back end through ethical hackers, perhaps, who will show them this is the result. If INEC had the integrity the human element is very clear. Focus more on having INEC appointed through Uwe's report. Get an INEC that has less incentive to please political authority. Some even
say unbundle INEC, it will make it a lot easier.
Reduce INEC. In fact, some of the work INEC does could be done by ministries and parastatals. I tell you, we see...
Not to print the ballot papers.
See, but by the way, it's been printed now by somebody who is...
so
what have you get?
An interested
This could have been printed by national security, because that company, Binani's printing press, is not more secured than national security press. So it's a facade that you are securing it and you give it a political stakeholder. Again, if you look at the Center for Disease Control, they do immunization throughout families. They have database. They are almost like accurate. How can INEC just deliver 176,600 and something polling units in election plan for 4 years? They can't even deliver it on time, synchronized. They can't even have 2 hours different. They have 5 hours, 6 hours. Some polls start by 9 o'clock, the presidency, some started by 2 o'clock. So the question then is, do you really need this ceremony about electoral management body? Can't you outsource this, break it down and say, okay, NCDC, take this ballot box, Nigeria Navy, drop this ballot box at this point. So I think there is this fiction that we need to have an INEC that is this big. And the last thing we are learning is that maybe we should make voting like we use the ATM, reduce so that real-time technology. Just walk there, print it. The result is up there. You don't need IRF, you don't need INEC to switch and switch off, because INEC is the one who gutted this process by switching off the electronic transmission.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
No better place to leave this conversation, but it will be ongoing as usual, never exhaustible at all. Dr. Sam Amadi is an associate professor at Rise Analyst.